Okay, we're live. Hey, everybody. This is Bradley Benner with Semantic Mastery. Today is Hump Day Hangouts episode 141. Wow. And it's July 19th, 4 p.m. Eastern, and we've got a rack of people on with us today. I'm going to go on down the line as I see them. And, well, first my partners, and then we've got some guests as well today, guys. So we'll get into that in just a moment. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Happy to be here. How are you, Bradley?
I'm good. I'm good. It's hot as hell here in Virginia right now, though. I'll tell you that. So it's even hot up here in my upstairs office. Hernan, you're up next. You look cold.
Yeah, it is. It is cold. Hey guys, what's up? It's really good to be here. For you guys watching this live, you're in for a treat because we have hell of guests today. So it's really good to be here.
That's right. That's right. So anticipation builds. Marco, what's up, buddy?
Hey, what's up, man? It's hella hot in Costa Rica. It's 80 again.
Yeah, that's what we got.
That's awesome. And then we got Roman on, who's been on with us recently for the last few weeks. What's up, Roman?
Oh, not much. How are you doing?
Good, man. I'm good. And next we've got Mike Pierce, the one and only. He's a legend in the SEO crowd. If you haven't heard of him, you've been living under a rock. So what's up, Mike?
Hey guys, it's good to be here. Sorry I brought Brad along, but he tags along.
Well, I'm going to let you introduce Brad since I'm not really familiar with Brad at the moment. So,
Brad is my secret weapon. No, Brad is my partner in crime, essentially, and we like to test and break things together.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Partner in crime. I hear that. So, guys, this very, we're pretty honored to have Mike on. He's Mike and his partner Brad as well. He's been kind of one of our go-to people that Marco's been talking with him for years now, and he does some real ninja stuff that it's amazing. So it's really awesome to have you guys on. We really appreciate you being here today.
Yeah, my pleasure, man.
All right, so just a couple of announcements before we get into some questions and stuff. And let's see, the first one, that's the wrong text file. Give me 1 second. Okay, so yeah, tomorrow we have a webinar with Lisa Allen talking about RSS, using RSS for authority and creating co-citation. Many of you may have been introduced to her platform or application that she created well over a year ago now called Rank Feeder. It's very, very powerful. I've actually just started testing it again recently. I kind of got away from doing that for a while I was learning and doing a lot of AdWords stuff. But now that I started getting back into doing more SEO again, I started playing with it, and I'm getting some crazy results using two different strategies. One being press releases for local. By the way, I'm getting really good results for local stuff with this. Using press releases is my sole off-page strategy. I've been testing that and really just crushing it recently with that. And then also using just this some RSS trigger stuff with a combination of IFTTT and now Rank Feeder. I'm mixing that into it, and I'm actually seeing really good results with that. So tomorrow we have a webinar for that. It's at 3:30 p.m. I'm going to drop the link onto the page here in just a moment. If you guys want to sign up for that, I encourage you to come check it out. It's a powerful application. All right, and then let me get into the next one as well. Okay, the next one we have RYS Reloaded. I'm going to let you tease that a little bit, Marco.
Yes, sir. Well, you know how we've been talking about entities and all about entities, and it's going to be moving forward. And the way that we've been saying it is that you have to validate your entity, right? You set it up, and then you have to validate your entity some kind of way. Well, there's a third step in this now, in that you have to solidify your entity. It's not just a two-step and you leave it alone. Your entity actually has to be alive, is what I call it. And so what we're moving towards with RYS Reloaded is not only is it still the SEO time machine where you just rank your shit in whatever you want, but when you want to go after some really hardcore shit, you can use it as long as you're using it in the way that we are going to teach it, right? Which is going after that entity, creating that entity, verifying the entity, and then what we're calling solidifying the entity, which is making it alive, and it has to be a living thing within, for lack of a better word, a living thing within the semantic web of things. Because if it's just another thing, it's just sitting there and it's nothing.
Yeah. So we're pretty excited about this, and we have the actual date for that yet. I know it's tentatively going to be for the end of August, correct?
End of August, beginning of September. We're somewhere around there.
So, you know, that's going to be, you know, pretty amazing. The last one that we did, shit, it's been almost it's been 2 years, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be the 2-year anniversary. That's why we're redoing it.
Yeah, this is
building
what
it.
Mark was talking about with the solidification and everything. If you guys out there listening, just think about it. It's all just common sense. If you just look at the life cycle of a real website, this is exactly what Mark was talking about. And it's 2 years old, but now it's reloaded, and that means it's been working for 2 years, and it's even stronger. So pretty freaking cool.
That's amazing, because I mean, other than you know, I mean, the core training is really unchanged. The core principles is unchanged, and it's still crushing it. It's just amazing. So, all right. Now, last thing I mentioned, I already posted this on the event page, guys, but we're going to be doing the live meetup. We talked about this the last couple weekends in a row, or excuse me, last couple hangouts in a row, in Portland, Oregon, on September 27th. And we dropped a link if anybody's interested in coming out to meet up with us and, you know, various other people. Then, you know, it's very inexpensive. We're just going to probably rent a room in a bar or a restaurant or something like that, and we're going to have some drinks and hang out, and we'll talk shop and, you know, just kind of network with each other and that kind of stuff, and it'll be fun. So it's not like we're doing any sort of like formal training. Of course, we'll be talking about business stuff, there's no doubt, but it's not going to be like formal training. It's more of just to get together and a meetup. So we're not charging like tuition and all that. The only thing we ask for is a small deposit to secure your spot, so that we can get kind of a head count prior to actually reserving a room, so we know what size of a room to get. But that's all it is. It's kind of a small deposit. So go check it out. And if you're anywhere in that, you know, vicinity or that side of the country or whatever, and you want to come out and check, you know, meet with us, and as well as many other you know, people in our audience or our group, our, you know, members, followers, whatever you want to call them, we encourage you to come do so, because I think it'll be fun. So
Is Marco going?
I don't think Marco's going. I think he's the only one who can't make it. He's been grounded by the doctor, right?
Yeah, no, I have to go to Argentina.
Okay.
For follow-up treatment, then I have to go back again in December, January.
So if anybody wants to go to Argentina for a one-on-one meetup with Marco, feel free to do so.
There you go.
I want to go for the treatments, man. I'm feeling a little jealous about Marco's back with the treatments he's getting, because mine's not getting any better at this point.
Yeah, he's getting the top treatment, and also this is kind of an experiment. It's like the first meetup of many that we have prepared, right? So if this goes well, we intend to do this like at least frequently as time permits. So the main idea is that we can get together, we can share, because this virtual space is great, it's amazing, but you know, in-person meetings, they have a lot to give us, to all of us. So we can meet and network, etc., etc. So if this goes well, we can keep on doing them. So
yeah,
I bet Brad at a freaking meetup like that, an event like that, and that's how I've been lucrative for the last year and a half, 2 years, is from a freaking meetup. So
yeah. Mike was actually telling me the other day about this event a few years ago, where he met the most badass SEO that he's ever met on the face of the planet, and they've made a ton of money together since. So that's pretty cool.
There you go.
Yeah, and that's what Hernan said. If this goes well, guys, we'll probably do at least a couple, maybe as many as quarterly, in various locations around the country, so that you know, make it more accessible for people that live in different areas. So
come to North Carolina, I'll go.
I'd love to, man.
You're in Virginia, right? Yeah, there you go.
I'm just in Virginia.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there we go. Do Virginia. I'll make it a day trip.
Absolutely.
We'll have to get him out there in October, Brad. You know?
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, when it's
We're gonna have a party in October. So
we got the leaves turn really colorful in October, September, October time. So
that's it.
All right, guys, we're gonna get into some questions. We got several already, so let's go ahead and jump into them if everybody's cool with that.
Let's do it.
Yep, let's go.
Okay. You all should be seeing my entire screen. I've got it zoomed in a little bit. How's it look?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, cool. All right, so the first one is from Neil. Neil is a newer local kingpin buyer, and he's got some questions here. And first thing, I'm not going to read the whole question. It's very long. But what I would mention, Neil, is that these questions should be answered in the training. So I don't know if you've gone through it entirely yet, but maybe go through it first. But basically the question you're asking about is for setting up lead gen funnels. And the problem you're having is not having a client when you set up the lead gen funnel first. And what do you do with the leads? And so I understand these are all what ifs that you're asking me here. And that's it's understandable to have kind of what ifs ahead of time, but what ifs are what stop people dead in their tracks from making progress, right? My suggestion to you is get the funnel set up, get the ad campaign set up, start generating leads, and then I'm going to give you some pointers right now. But start generating leads and then worry about what to do with the leads after you've got them, because when you go into it with the what do I do with them once I get them type mindset, a lot of times you won't even get started. And I'm not picking on you, Neil. I'm just saying that in general to anybody that's listening, because that paralysis of analysis gets us all. And in my experience, the best thing is take action. And in fact, when you start paying for clicks and you start getting leads that you're paying for coming in, it creates a sense of urgency. You'll get it figured out really quickly, like what to do with those leads. And that kind of pressure gets me to take action. And so a lot of times I do stuff knowing I'm just going to make a hell of a mess out of it, because I know that now I'm going to try to have to clean up my mess under a sense of urgency. And that's really the only way that I'll ever get it done. Because if I try to make everything perfect or understand everything before making the mess and then trying to fix it, I'll never even get started. And so again, that's just how I work. So I recommend that, you do the same thing. That said, as far as leads type stuff, now I've never worked with dentists or any sort of physician of any kind, guys. So I don't know if there's any sort of other legality issues, and I'm sure some of you on this line are,
yeah, I will say just there are some things in certain states to pay attention to when it comes to working with doctors and various things. I don't know about dentists in particular. You might know more, but I know that there have been doctors in the past that just straight up told me, sorry, I can't legally advertise. I can't legally do this. So if it's a new market to you and you don't know the market and it is a medical market, look into those questions first.
Right.
And make sure
you should always know your market regardless.
What's that, Brad?
You should always know your market regardless and
Right.
go for yourself in whatever market you're in.
Exactly. So,
yeah, no, I totally agree with that. So, I mean, if you have access to any dentist that you could talk to about that, like local dentists, if you're going to be working in your own state, for example, you could ask some questions. In fact, that would even be a great conversation starter for potential service providers or people, dentists that would buy leads from you, is to call around and just ask some questions, because then you're not calling as a salesman. You're not calling as a marketing guy. You're calling to ask their expertise about a particular issue, about marketing for dentists. Like, if that makes sense.
You might actually find some pain points when you're approaching them that way that you might not know about ahead of time. If you talk to them like that, you might stumble on a gold mine. So.
Yeah, and at the same time, like I said, that's also a conversation starter from an angle, a non-sales angle, that can get you in the door for potential lead buyers. So as far as when it comes to contractors, which is primarily what I deal with, what I've always done is I set up a generic lead gen funnel and I send all the leads. By the way, I can tell from your question that you're planning on fielding phone calls from your lead gen funnels. Please don't do that. Send it to voicemail. I don't care what you do. Just don't be answering the phone for lead gen funnels. There's really no reason for you to. The whole idea is just to prove that you can generate leads. That's it. Once you've proven that you can generate 2 or 3 leads, or 5 or whatever for that particular niche, whatever your niche may be, then you can contact service providers and show proof and say, this is what I have available. And that's what I do. I always set up a lead gen funnel with a generic, typically now I have the service provider pretty much in place before I set it up, because I've been doing this for a long time. So I get requests for lead gen funnels and things like that. So it's simple. But when you're starting out, my suggestion is to just set something up generic, get a couple leads coming in, have it go to voicemail. Please don't answer the phone yourself. Don't mislead anybody, right? So if you're sending people to voicemail, they're probably either not going to leave a message, or they may leave a message, and likely you're going to lose the lead because it's going to go to another provider. It's going to go to the next listing. So what? The point is you can prove the phone call, you can prove the click, the phone call, the web form submission, whatever. That's a lead. Once you've proven that you can do a few leads, now you can show data to potential service providers. That's how I've always done it, and that's what I suggest doing. Anybody else have any other insight on that?
No, I second your opinion of taking action first and figuring out later, right? And this applies for lead gen for AdWords, and this also applies for lead gen for SEO websites or organic websites or whatever you're trying to do. Pretty much, you cannot expect everything to be laid out neatly for you. Otherwise, you'll never take an action. So yeah, I think that this applies to pretty much anything that we're doing.
And you want to get good at research, so go out there and do some research and see if there might not be a solution for you that might be able to field those calls for you while you're kind of getting your feet wet, and actually kind of group that into some data for yourself. So go look around what services are out there around the call space, and you might find something interesting.
Yep, I agree with that.
My 2 cents, first talk to a dentist in person. Ideally, you know somebody. There's also the American Dentist Association, where you can hit potential clients up. And as everybody else said, good old Art Williams, just do it.
Just do it. Yep. And so again, yeah, that's just the way I like to do it. I like to have, I've got a call center set up for all my lead gen stuff. So I always will just, obviously I know my markets very well. So I can set up a generic script for the call center so that they can literally screen the leads when they come in. It's even if I don't have a service provider in place, typically I do now, but even if I were not to, I would still have a warm body answering the phone. They have a specific scripts that they ask the caller. So essentially it qualifies the lead. And now I have the lead data that I can submit via text and or email to any contractor that I want or any service provider that I want. And so again, like I said, it's just, to me, it's just the ability, and you don't have to have a call center right away. If you're just getting started out, just send it to voicemail. It's all you need, just something to be able to, and you have to make sure you have analytics, conversion tracking, that kind of stuff all set up correctly, which is all covered in the training, so that that you can show your leads coming through. You can show conversions, which essentially are leads. Does that make sense? So, okay. Next, we're going to move on. Keith Mallinson. What's up, Keith? He says, I have 3 questions with reference to building Google business listings. If a client has multiple locations, should I create a separate Gmail account for each GMB location, or just use one Gmail account and register all the locations on that one account? If it's a bona fide business, not something that you're like setting up for lead gen, then it's fine to set up all the GMB location pages under the primary account. That's perfectly fine. Where I talk about using separate personas for each GMB is like if you're setting up lead gen locations and and you're using stuff like USPS post office boxes as your physical location and that kind of stuff, then you can flag an account that way. If you try to register more than one PO box under an account, it doesn't always happen, but it's been happening more recently. So that's why I recommend for like lead gen stuff that you set up a separate persona account as the owner of the GMB profile, so they're like the owner of the Google My Business page, and then set yourself up as the manager on across all of them, so that you can easily manage those from your Google My Business dashboard or your agency's dashboard or however you have it set up. But my point is for that's just a way to mitigate risk, to reduce risk in case your lead gen assets get smacked by Google because they determined that all of a sudden it's not a valid business or whatever. If that's the case, you're only one at a time is really susceptible to being terminated, as opposed to if you have them all underneath one Google My Business profile account, or excuse me, one Google profile. If all locations are owned under there and one of them is to get in trouble, it's likely that it could affect all of them. Does that make sense? Anybody want to comment on that?
Yeah, you definitely, especially if it's a real business, having it in one account and strengthening that account is a great idea. So yep. I second everything that was said.
Yeah, it themes out the entire account if you build them all in the same.
Yep. Yep.
Piggyback off of
it shows
each of
that
them.
It's a thriving business too. So it's powerful. Would you advise creating separate websites for each location or use one domain with separate pages for each location? Again, that's going to come up. That's going to really depend on you. For a legitimate business, I would recommend using separate location pages on one domain. For lead gen stuff, I prefer to do individual subdomain sites for each location. And again, it's all for mitigating risk. If one of those sites is to get slapped, it should be localized or affecting only that one site, not the entire domain. Whereas if you have location pages on a root domain or a subdomain, it doesn't matter. If you have location pages, so they're all hosted under one site, and one of those locations gets smacked by Google, then it could affect the entire domain. And so then you could lose all of them. And so again, it's all about mitigating risk. If it's a genuine business, a client that you're doing for ease of management, I would recommend doing it all underneath, location pages on one domain. But if you're doing, separate stuff or lead gen stuff, then I like to use subdomains, but that's just to manage risk. Any comments?
We tend to use individual domains for certain parts of it, and then go into single domains for other portions of the campaigns. But yeah, I definitely break them apart.
If it's a client, it's all going to be on their site. If I'm doing it, as PPL offer or something like that, it's going to be separate sites, like Mike said. So exactly what you said too.
Yep. Awesome. Okay, number 3 is if I was building RYS stacks, is it okay to use one drive account with separate folders if I purchase extra space from Google, or should I always use separate accounts? I know I have multiple folders. I know having multiple folders can cause issues with the RSS script. I'm going to let Marco answer that one.
Let me see. You should silo, for lack of a better word, inside the same drive stack. Put them all in there. Now, having multiple folders does not cause issues. We actually use multiple folders, and each folder will have a script that will post on auto to the G site. I mean, that's the only thing that will cause an issue is how often you run the script. This is why we say, slow it down every 8 hours, every 12 hours, use that script to strip down the website and build it again. I mean, that's what it actually does, and it takes up a lot of resources. And if you take up too much, you're a mooch, and Google will get rid of you. But if you're paying them for extra space, I mean, it's something that could possibly mitigate them from coming in and saying, well, we have a credit card in this account. We have all of this. It's real, and so let's leave them alone. I mean, I've seen that happen time after time. And by the way, we are working on the script. It's being fixed as we speak, and it should be ready for RYS Reloaded. So be on the lookout for that.
Cool. Any other comments? All right. Mitch says, for local map pack rankings, have you noticed that location has taken over as the most significant factor? Yeah, right now, Mick, I've been seeing that actually quite a bit. You mean proximity? So proximity to city center. And I'm pretty sure that has to do with the local algorithm turning more mobile than anything. And so it's about proximity to the actual user itself and the location of the business. So when you're looking from desktop, it's likely that you're going to be getting results based upon proximity to city center, what Google determines as city center. But when you're looking on mobile, it's going to use your IP location, your GPS, basically, to determine which are the closest businesses to where you're located.
Mobilely, you're essentially moving the centroid for that query to your location if it's mobile. So yeah, absolutely. You just basically are shifting the centroid for the query when you're on a mobile phone.
That's right. So one thing I can tell, Mick, is if you go into the Google AdWords keyword ad preview and ad diagnosis tool, you can set, and it gives you just kind of like an indication. It's still not 100% accurate, but you can set your location and where you're supposed to be searching from, and it will only show you first page results, and it won't allow you to click any of the links on the first page results because really it's supposed to just show ads. But it shows the full SERP for the query that you enter based upon the location that you set. And so that's something that I've troubleshot some maps ranking issues that are difficult to troubleshoot without being localized in that having a local IP in that area that you're searching from. And so I've had to use that sometimes to be able to kind of pinpoint specific ranking anomalies or whatever based upon IP location. So that's something that you can take a look at. But if you're not in the 3-pack, you won't be able to expand the maps pack to see where you are based upon those IPs either. Based upon that location either. It's literally like a frozen SERP screenshot.
Yeah, it's a screen grab essentially, but I'm in that thing constantly. It's a wonderful tool.
Yep. So he says, for example, if an error, I'm sorry. Does somebody want to jump in?
Yeah, if I can interject, because he's talking about local map rankings and yes, geolocation or the proximity to the service that's being looked at is becoming the major factor, right? How close you are to whatever business it is that you're looking for, whatever's closest is going to come up. But there are ways to influence this part of the algorithm. There's always ways. It's a fucking machine.
You can move the centroid. I mean, yes.
Guys, it's math. I keep telling you, it's all math. If you know the math, or if you can kind of figure out what it is that Google wants, then you can go into the Google My Business listing and give Google ways to bring you up in the rankings, even if you're not the closest one to the one that's closest to the searcher.
You can tell them where to make the centroid, essentially.
That's more technical than I would want to get.
Yeah, no, it's just, I mean, it's like you said, it's math, and you can do things that you want. You can make them do things that you want them to do.
Right.
Yeah, and part of that is, I mean, there's several ways to do it. We can't really get into it. It would be a whole training on its own, and we cover this in various places. But there's a lot of things that you can do, like set the centroid based upon like your service area, for example, would be one. Another way you could do it is something that I've been testing a lot recently, and I've been seeing significant improvements with the testing sites that I've been using it on, is making sure that you're posting regularly, even to your Google Plus page. Even though I know it's a ghost town now, guys, Google Plus, and it's not really integrated with Maps like visibly anymore, it's still integrated with Maps behind the scenes. And so if you're posting localized news results, for example, onto your Google Plus page, it will help to influence where your Google Maps page will rank. And so that's something that you can do, is set up like newsfeed triggers for with local news stuff. We're going to be covering part of this in the Syndication Academy update webinar that immediately follows Hump Day Hangouts. So if you're in Syndication Academy, make sure you're on it, because on the webinar today, because we're going to be covering part of this and some IFTTT recipes that will automate this for you. And it's pretty amazing to be able to start republishing local news stuff that can be triggered in various ways to your Google Plus page, which will help to rank the Maps listing. So that's something else you might want to look into. All right, cool. We're going to move on. Mohammed's up next. He says, hey, guys, I've been doing a revenue share AdWords campaign with a home builder recently, and while I haven't made money yet, the model seems like it can be very profitable once I get the hang of it. That said, would it be a good idea to just go to multiple businesses with high client values like IT infrastructure, real estate, remodeling, etc., and do the same thing? It's easy to sell a business owner since their clients would be big. I wouldn't need a lot of sales to make it worth the time. Then again, I'm not seeing a drawback here. It seems too easy. Is there something I'm missing? Well, the first part of that question I would recommend is to stick with a home builder personally, and start scaling outwards as far as going into other locations and targeting other builders. The reason I say that is because you don't need to do all the research again, Mohammed. If you've already done it once for this campaign that you're working for, this revenue share partner that you have, then why do the research all over again? My point is, every time you switch industries, you got to start from scratch as far as the research and the keywords and the pain points and the sales, and knowing what type of ad copy gets the highest click-through rate and which type of pages convert leads to visitors to leads, all that kind of stuff. Once you start dialing that in, which it sounds like you're in the midst of right now for your home builder campaign, why not just duplicate what you've already done, right? And that way, now you've got in the same industry, just in multiple cities. So now you're going to start amassing even more and more data about that particular industry, and you can get really, really good at that industry. And that's how you scale, man. Trying to start taking over or providing the same service to multiple industries means you have to do the research all over. It's a long learning curve, and you'll never really be a big fish because you'll be a small fish in a great big pond as opposed to a big fish in a small pond, if that makes sense. Any comments, guys?
Yeah, I don't like to see people move on until they have monetized what they've started, personally. So if it hasn't started paying yet, I would make it start paying before you even start thinking anything.
Yeah,
from a business owner or whatever, it doesn't matter. See what you have going monetized.
from a like a momentum standpoint too. Once you get that first, bit of money coming in, you're going to get, jacked about that and just like want to dig into it deeper. And I agree 100%. Stay within, a certain amount of niches as well. I try and stay in, some of the most competitive niches because I know there's always money there and I can monetize whatever I have.
Yep.
But I still limit that. I don't hop around unless something comes around where it's like, yeah, that makes sense, and they're going to pay me a shit ton of money to get into that industry. I'll learn it. So
yeah, and for what you're saying, Brad, that makes sense because here's the thing: you already can, you can achieve results in any industry that you go into by duplicating the processes that you've set up. But for somebody that is just learning the process, don't even have the processes in place yet, don't start trying to scale into other industries because you need to get the process down first to where it's duplicatable. Then you can start looking at other industries or niches to get into if you want. Although I still recommend your quickest way to scale is to stick within one particular industry and maybe some subsets of that industry.
Absolutely. And one thing I will say is another thing about jumping around into different business owners is that I really don't like seeing people put in that type of work and doing the keyword research until somebody else has money in the game. So, keeping it with one person until that's monetized, you're not jumping in and spending all these hours doing keyword research in all these different industries for different business owners that haven't put money in the game with you yet. I mean, if they put money in the game with you, it's one thing, but this is another factor to look at. It's like, just make sure there's money there for the work you've already put in before you start putting more work in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, Bradley, if I can add something, like I totally agree with Mike and Brad are saying here, because we have had these students or people coming to Hump Hangout saying, I'm coming from, I want to do a national dentist, whatever, a directory or a website or a lead gen that's going national. And while we do, we do applaud that you're thinking big, I do agree with the guys in terms of go first to an area, make money, monetize that, and use that money to reinvest back in your project. You know what I mean? So yeah, so that's basically what we are like. There's absolutely, like, you can totally achieve it, but a lot of people they get discouraged initially and they keep spinning their wheels because, again, they are hopping from different business. And I totally agree with what Mike was saying in terms of either A, you're developing your own properties, you're developing your own lead gen websites, or B, you're charging the business owner, right? So if you're developing your own lead gen, your own properties with 301s or whatever you're trying to do, then monetize something and use that money to reinvest in the rest of the structure, So that's how we approach it, because I've had like big projects like that in the past. And unless you have like a big wallet or a big, VC funding or whatever that is to buck you up for the next 3 or 4 years or 5 years, that's going to take you, monetize that big project. Then you need to take it slowly and by chunks, divide it by chunks and go from there. So yeah, that would be basically my input, and I totally agree with you guys.
Yeah, we're in an industry where you can stay as lean as you want to stay, and we're not dead about rolling it back in and growing that way is perfect. And you also want to get that first win and have that confidence in yourself. And I remember the first time I made money online, I worked my ass off after that, and so definitely get there, stay there, and get that first freaking win for yourself, so that you are like, hell, I did this, I can do this. And now, like Bradley said, scale, but scale in the same space without doing the work again, and just use what you have, cap that space out, and then move on if you need to move on.
Yeah, proof of concept is huge in the beginning, and then expand vertically.
So he says
horizontally as needed, but yeah.
My home building campaign is getting to the point where I'm identifying the keywords that I will use for an alpha campaign. One even has 8 out of 31 clicks. I plan to start an alpha campaign in a few more days, but should I do so if I don't have conversions? Yes. And the reason why, Mohammed, I tell you that is because if you've identified the conversions, that's a whole nother area that you need to, you can work on separately. But the click-through rate, if you're getting 8 out of 31 clicks in whatever a short time span that are an exact match keyword, that's a good indication that should be an alpha campaign. You break that out. So that's called the peel and stick method. You peel it out of that campaign, add it to an alpha campaign into a single keyword AdWord group. And now you have an exact match, which means you're cost per click should go down. So in other words, if you leave it running in the beta campaign right now, even though it's been pretty much identified as an alpha keyword, then you're going to pay more for every one of those clicks while you optimize for conversions. But why not instead pull that out, peel and stick it into its own alpha campaign as an exact match keyword, and now you'll get a cheaper cost per click. So while you're working on optimizing for conversions, okay. So that's what I recommend doing as soon as you've been able to identify. And again, what I mentioned 2 weeks ago when I was here, because I know you asked a question similarly. Don't rush the alpha beta. Like don't rush trying to decide what your alpha keywords are. Give it a little bit of time. 8 out of 31 is not bad. I don't know how much of a time span that was, but that shows a pretty good pattern, right? That's likely going to be an alpha keyword. And so again, pull that out. And what's interesting is once you pull an alpha keyword out of a beta campaign, right, and you create the alpha keyword out of it, or the alpha campaign, excuse me, then because that's no longer going to be available in that beta campaign, the beta campaign will start to reveal other variations of keywords that you may not have seen before, because the alpha, the exact match keyword was getting the clicks. So that was running through your budget. Does that make sense? So once you remove that alpha keyword from the beta campaign, you'll start to identify additional alpha keywords from that same modified broad match string, if that makes sense. Okay. Anyone else before I move on? Okay. I know it's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just like, let's go, because it's a great topic to,
it is
to
a
keep
great
talking
topic.
about. Yeah.
He says, I know it's a very broad question, but what things can be done to improve a landing page? When I do start the alpha campaign I mentioned in the last question, I want it to be better than my beta, and local kingpin BB used the same template but changed up the keywords. Is that a good strategy? For me, Mohammed, for PPC, I don't spend a lot of time on the landing pages as far as like trying to make them super pretty and all that. I just want basically the conversions to be decent or better. Like again, for my local lead stuff, guys, I don't spend a ton of time optimizing for conversions. I get it to where it's just good enough to where I've got a profitable ad campaign, and that's it. I leave it at that because I go work on another funnel at that point. I'm not saying if you've only got one campaign to work on, go ahead, start working on improving for conversions. You can dial it in. Like you can never stop dialing it in. So, you know, it's up to you. It depends on where you're going to put your priority. As far as what I've done is I found the one template that you guys saw in local kingpin. I use that template for contractor type lead gen funnels because it works, it's consistent, and it's simple. And all I got to do is duplicate that template over and over again. And like I mentioned in the training with AdWords landing pages, as long as you have certain elements there and the keyword is clearly identifiable to Google, and it matches the ad copy and the keyword that you're targeting, then that's really all that matters as far as the landing page quality score. There's not really, like I've tested and I've experimented with adding more copy and, you know, adding multimedia elements and all different kinds of things. And really it comes down to hammering Google. Remember, AdWords is completely the opposite of SEO. And in that, with landing pages, it's okay to hammer Google over the head with what the keyword is. Like you wouldn't do that with SEO, but with AdWords you can. So like, and again, in the training, you know, I put the exact match keyword in the SEO title. So the page title, it's in the alt text of the images. It's on the page once or twice somewhere, you know, and that you wouldn't, especially when there's only, you know, 150 words on the page, you certainly wouldn't do that with SEO, but with AdWords, it really makes no difference as long as there's the elements that they're looking for.
I would add that this is actually what he should ask is, does he want to improve the landing page aesthetically, which could be a waste of time, or does he want to improve his conversion rate? Which by all means, I mean, you always look to improve conversion rate. If it's converting, who cares? If it isn't converting, then of course you're gonna want to improve your landing page. So it all depends on what you mean, Mohammed, by improve the landing page.
I think, and Bradley made a good point. If you're knocking them out, you're moving into different funnels, get it profitable and keep going. But again, if you are just working, you know, on a single freaking funnel, like Marco said, get that conversion rate up as high as you freaking can.
Yeah. Yeah, guys, if you have to remember, you have to you have to spend your time resource wisely, right? So if you're working on one, like Mohammed sounds like you are at the moment, it's just the one, then yeah, absolutely work on conversions, because or conversion optimization. But once you've gotten that profitable, I know people that spend all their time working on conversions when they, and that may work for some businesses, but for me, I'd rather get the funnel profitable to where I'm making a positive return on investment for any of my ad spend. And as soon as I get it there, then I have just some, benchmark numbers that I try to hit as far as conversion ratio and that kind of stuff. And then once I hit that number, then I'm off to the next one. Just for me, I'd rather set up more funnels and have volume, because they're all multiple streams of income. They're all their own little stream of income versus having all of my time invested into one. There's nothing wrong with that.
I will say that be careful, because I've seen many people over the years, recently, years ago, if they're focusing on single funnels and something happens to that funnel,
everything.
You're done. I mean, I've had 4 or 5 funnels go at one time and woke up and gone, oh shoot, how am I buying freaking lunch today? In the past, when I was getting started. So I really like the idea of branching out once you have the conversion. So.
Yeah. Sweet. All right, Jeff's up. He says, I have a duplicate branded G+ pages for my branded IFTTT network. I'm pretty sure this is a result of registering a YouTube channel back in the day when G+ branded pages were automatically produced with the YouTube channel, and then B, later registering a GMB listing, which also automatically produced a G+ branded page. 2 questions. Number 1, what should I do about the duplicate G+ branded pages? Should I keep the newer one associated with the GMB listing, delete the old one, and associate the YouTube channel with the newer branded page? Very confusing. Please advise. That's what I would do, because I would rather have the GMB, the G+ page that was associated with the Google My Business page. For me, that's a more powerful association. So I would just delete the old one, and then the just the page, not the channel. If you're using the channel, like you said, just associate that channel. You can change ownership of the channel. That's something that you do in YouTube advanced settings. And I think all that's been covered in, I think even Syndication Academy, to be honest. And if not, it might even be in our knowledge base, Jeff. I think you know how to do that. Anybody want to comment on it before we move to part 2?
I'm looking at it right now. That's pretty much how I start.
Yep.
Depending on what the campaign's going to be, though, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, like if he had the older page, the Google Plus page itself, like had a ton of posts on it that were helping somewhere, whether your money site or your YouTube channel, it wasn't associated with the Google My Business listing, so it wasn't helping maps ranking. But again, Google Plus, in my opinion, I mean, there are benefits to using it now, but it's that the page itself really doesn't have a lot of value, unless, like I said, for at least for the way that I use them now. The value I get from a Google Plus page now is if it's associated with a Google My Business Maps page, essentially, because I can manipulate the maps ranking, or at least help influence the maps ranking based upon the posting being done to the Google Plus page. But if it's not associated with the maps, like honestly, I'm just not using it as much. I mean, I'll still create an associated Google Plus page to go with a YouTube channel if it's a YouTube channel only, because it still does help. But like I said, with an older page like that, I would just do what you said in option number 1. Or excuse me, question number 1. So number 2 says, with all these recent changes in Google Plus, YouTube, etc., should the proper sequence of events for registering new Google IFTTT branded accounts be as follows? Start with Gmail, then Google Plus profile. That's normally so A and B is normally correct. Then GMB listing, which yields the G+ branded page. Yes, if it's going to be for a local business, then I would agree. I think what was covered in the training, and that might be something I'll make a note of actually to do an update on for next time. I'm actually writing on my whiteboard. Give me a second. What's this update for G+? New terms. All right, I'll make a note of that, Jeff. So next month on the next update webinar, I'll cover that more in depth. But yeah, totally. If you're going for a business with a maps listing, then yes, I would agree that's the way to go. Also, and I did already cover. So the only difference between the updates that I've already put into the training and what you've got listed here is you're adding a Google My Business listing into it, because the process has been already updated to do the Google Plus profile first, and now create the branded Google My Business page first, before setting up the YouTube account. Okay. And then you associate them once the YouTube account is set up. So the only difference here is if you're going to be setting up a Google My Business listing, then you do that prior to setting up the branded page, because that will create the branded page. Is exactly right. All right. But I will put that in the training. I'll make a note of that. Columbia, she has been crushing it and coming here every single week and asking great questions. She's building a video marketing agency. And she says, if I am providing curated content for a client, how do I best set it up for owning the property and or keeping the most control? How can I maintain control if they already have a blog and really want me to provide content for the blog? Columbia, it's a great question. Please don't confuse what we talk about with trying to build up your own assets as much as possible with doing client work. Client work, for the vast majority of it, you're just going to have to do on their asset, period. That's what they're paying for. So when it comes to content marketing, the content marketing services that I provide, which are essentially curated blog posts, or that my agency provides, they're always done on the client's blog directly. And there's really no other way to do that, because remember, they're paying you for that content marketing. That's going to be posted to their blog. It's going to be syndicated to their social media properties, their syndication network, because I know you sold them one of those already, right? So my point is, all that is like, and just like citation building, if you're doing maps SEO for them, if you're going to be building citations and such, you're not going to be building citations to your own redirected domain. You're going to build citations directly to their NAP, right? So it's going to be going to their business directly, but that's what they're paying you for. Okay. I mean, there's certain things like any sort of off-page SEO link building that you're doing, like inbound link building outside of syndications, syndication network and content marketing. You can do all that through your own domains, right? Your own redirects, which is what I recommend doing. But if you're doing stuff that's like content marketing or citations, press releases, and even then you can get away with redirects and press releases for the most part. But there's certain things that you're just going to want to link directly to the client's properties. There's not really any way around it. And really, in my opinion, there's certain things that they pay for that are tangible deliverables. And that would be one of them. Any comments on that, guys?
Yeah, if I can just add, the more control they want, the more they have to pay.
Exactly.
Period.
Yep.
There are ways to do content marketing like that, especially with curation and maintain control, but you need software to do it. And it's getting deeper into different systems and things like that. But for the most part, in a content marketing campaign, they're buying the posts from you directly and they're not renting them.
Right.
I mean, I've seen it both ways, done it both ways, but in the general industry, it's going to be like Bradley said, it's a deliverable.
Yep. Okay, Mark's up next. He says, when syndicating from your money site to your tier 1 IFTTT network, are you placing links in the body that point to your money site with specific anchor text, or just leaving the attribution links at the end that point to your money site in blog post via the RSS plugin? If so, what type of anchor text are you seeing the results with? Branding, exact, LSI, etc. That's a great question, Mark. I believe in the advanced module of the Syndication Academy training, we cover link building and best practices. And we talk about that. Well, I'm happy to talk about it here again briefly. I'm just pointing that out for any of you that are watching that may have that same question. You can go back and get more in-depth tutorial or training inside Syndication Academy. Okay. That said, yeah. So if you're just using, now remember the whole principle, or the method that I've been using for years now that has been working really well, is to use internal links from within the blog post to link up to the pages on the site that you're trying to rank. Mm-hmm. Right. So and again, in the case of local, which is primarily what I do, we're typically using the blog to build links to the pages on the site that we want to rank in Google that will generate the leads, right? The click-throughs and the leads. And so usually the blog itself will use contextual links, and it varies. You depending on, first of all, how many tiers you have in your networks, for blog syndication, that kind of stuff. I always recommend sticking with one syndication, branded syndication network for blog syndication, specifically because you can get into trouble unless you know what you're doing with having tiered networks. So if you were just using a branded single tier network, then it's okay to use keywords. Just don't hammer the same keywords in your anchor text over and over and over again in every post, because that can cause issues. But if you're just using a branded syndication, tier 1 syndication network, then really you're only going to have 3 to 5 blog sites that are going to republish the posts, right? The syndicated posts that will contain the keyword anchor text links. or the links period, because a lot of them are just going to be bookmarks or whatever that point to the post URL, right? So there is no additional syndication of those internal links, right? The contextual links within the post body, because the post body doesn't get republished on most of the platforms. It's typically just the link back to the post URL, which is fine, because now you're funneling link juice through the post URL to any of the internal links or any of the links period in the post, which then will eventually, if you follow the the best practices, you'll have a link within the post that links up to your page. So it's up to you. But if you're going to be doing a lot, like if you only have, let's say, for example, like 2 pages on your site that you're trying to rank, and you're going to be doing content marketing consistently and syndication stuff, then switch it up. Use all of the above. What type of anchors are you seeing results with? All of those, right? You want to go with brand terms or brand anchors. You want to go with naked URLs with a call to action. You can also have like a call to action with the keyword in close proximity to a naked URL. That's going to associate that keyword with that URL anyways, right? You can do generics, LSIs, all of the above is my point. Anybody want to jump on that?
And you want all of the above is because you want everything that has to do with that main entity pointing at what is pointing at your lead generation page, which is your blog. So you want all of that good freaking entity juice coming in there and pointing directly to the supporting pages, which are pushing up the page that you're targeting. So
yeah, I typically always recommend to people on this one, if you don't know what you're doing and you haven't played around with it yet, stick with shortened RSS posts to prevent these kind of problems from coming up to begin with. And then you can test it out with your full posts with your links inside of it and play with it. But it's always best to treat it safely, similar to what you would do with like a press releases and things like that. You're not going to put an exact match keyword in a press release as your anchor.
You don't?
No. You can't.
I gotta go. Yeah.
All right, let's. We only got a couple more minutes, guys. We're gonna have to wrap it up, so we're not gonna get to all of them. Sorry. Clickstar Marketing says, "Hey guys, I'm new to the group and recently purchased your battle plan. I love your training, especially your attention to detail. I ran my own e-commerce site. By the way, I'll +1 that. I ran my own e-commerce sites for 7 years, but now I'm transitioning into lead gen. I have a few local sniper sites that I want to spin and clone for different sites. I'm using high quality manual spin tags that is nested with 90% uniqueness, but I'm concerned about hosting. Do you know of any methods to mask the server IP if I host them all on the same server, or should I buy shared hosting for each domain? I remember some of the old eGadget sites were all on one server, but how did you hide from the bots?" Well, you really didn't, other than Cloudflare, like on lead gadget sites, is which you're talking about. But you can do that. You can use various third-party DNS services, Cloudflare, Amazon Route 53 is another one. You can do those kind of things to kind of mask IPs. But, I don't recommend, personally, shared hosting, even for lead gen sites, guys. Remember, lead gen sites are money-producing sites. They're assets. If you go on and get a bunch of cheap shared hosting accounts, I'm just going to call you Click, then, the problem with that is a lot of times those sites go down or they load really slow. And so if they're lead gen sites, you're going to lose leads because of that. I know because of my own business and trying to save on hosting. So now for lead gen stuff, I typically don't really care about having multiple lead gen sites, if they're in various like cities and that kind of stuff on the same IP, or I'll use third-party DNS services. But try to go with better hosting is what I recommend.
Yeah, I always grab a VPN.
Dedication is a really good thing.
Yeah. Would you say?
And really being on the same IP doesn't really affect you much until it comes to linking. Yeah. So if you're linking all from one IP to one IP, and all these sites are set up on this IP that you're linking to from the same IP over here, that's when you're going to get hit. Otherwise, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've got hosting accounts that I've got 15, 20 lead gen sites on, but they're higher quality hosts like Liquid Web, and I'm using WPX hosting now, which is Terry Kyle's hosting solution. It's a good solution as well. So I'm using various better hosts, and again, it just like he said, it's really IP uniqueness is really only comes into play when you're backlinking to your site.
Yeah, one of the other things I would say also is when you select whatever you're going to do for your hosting solution, check and see what's also on those same IPs. See what you have around you.
Neighborhood.
That's going to tell you whether or not you really should stay there or not. If you see a bunch of low quality PBNs set up on there, you might want to go somewhere else.
Yeah,
'Cause I've been
whenever I
in
see
that-
Roman sites up there, I
Yeah, I
just
was gonna say the same thing about you, Brad.
you don't want to be on the server with me.
I'm actually
It's being abused.
I'm getting really good results with Amazon VPS instances.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, EC2s are good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's also a possibility as well. I mean, again, like if you're saying you're starting with 5 different niches, which is fine, then I recommend you start with one, but and scale that one just like we mentioned earlier on this webinar. But if you want, I mean, if you've already decided you're going to go after 5 different niches, so be it. Do it. My point is, I would just invest in a good host and just host all of your sites on that one host. Like Roman said, check the neighborhood. So if you you want to make sure that you're not associating or consorting with other shitty sites. So, but just go with a good host and then start building them out. You shouldn't have any problem.
Also, back to Cloudflare. I mean, each Cloudflare account typically has a different set of name servers too. They're going to all be .cloudflare.com, but it's exactly. So just think about that too.
The other homework for you is do a search for reverse proxy.
Yep.
All right, guys, I'm going to answer these next 2. We got Syndication Academy webinar in 4 minutes, so we got to make this quick. I just don't want to pass these up. Jason McGill says, you may remember I asked a question a few weeks ago about getting usernames and passwords to a client site that was built by a different web designer SEO business. Yeah, and I told you I never had any success with using the request transfer thing inside of Google. I'd never gotten a response out of that. Needless to say, they were a bag of dicks.
They can eat themselves then.
Yeah. I'm wondering if I can still help this client by building a bridge page. Does it make sense to have him purchase a keyword relevant URL and rank that page and include a backlink to their original site? I know I can still help them by building a GStack, but want to go to them with more options. Thanks. All right. Well, here's the problem that I've had in the past was Google My Business listing that was ranked that I had no access and the client had no access to, because that's where the problem occurs. If it's not ranked, then just go report it as permanently closed or whatever, or use the Google help form or the help option or whatever to try to report it as closed and then explain why or something like that. You don't want it to. You got to be real careful about it. What I've been able to do in the past, and I haven't done it in about 2 years, but was able to delete the page and then set up a new one. Even though it's the same location, I was able to actually delete the page and then set up a new one because it wasn't. It comes up as a duplicate page when you first set it up, but if you can get it to stick, then you can go into the map maker or at least map maker is still available, right? Or is it switched over to Google Local Guides now entirely? I think it's under, let's see, Google Map Maker. Anyways, under Google Map Maker, you used to be able to go in and it's like report, this is a duplicate for this reason. We have no access to it. We created a new one. And in that commentary section, a manual reviewer will come in and they'll make the decision on whether it's true or not. Sometimes it requires verification from the actual business owner. I've had that happen, but I don't know. See, now it's saying Map Maker has closed. It's all under Google Local Guides now, I think. Yeah, it is. So same thing. Join as a Google Local Guide if you haven't already, and then you can start to contribute or make changes and edits to maps as a local guide. This is something you want to do. You can see I'm at level. I'm at level 5 or just a few points away from level 5 or whatever. But that's a pretty powerful way to get it. That's the only way I've been able to do it in the past. Anybody got a comment on that?
Yeah, Google Map Maker closed, but My Maps is a fucking playground. Go play it.
And local guides. Right. Okay, cool. Does it make sense to purchase a keyword relevant URL? Yeah, I mean, I guess you could do all that, but I would try to fix that issue with the Google My Business page first. I mean, that would be my primary thing to do. And if they're already ranking though, then you'd have to explain to them that you're going to basically tank that 3-pack ranking until you got it resolved. And I don't know that that's something that they'd be willing to do. You'd have to approach them with it. Okay. Last thing I just want to say, Ricardo, he asked what this icon means on a YouTube channel. I think that just means you don't have a profile picture. That's under the new YouTube layout. I don't know for sure, but it looks to me like you just don't have a profile picture. Anybody got a comment on that?
That's what it looks like to me from here.
I just don't worry about crap like that. to be honest.
Yeah. As far as I know, I mean, that looks like the new YouTube layout, which I was just seeing that yesterday. Sometimes it shows, sometimes it doesn't for me. And I'm assuming that's just no profile photo. Okay, guys, we have to run. Oh, look at that. Beautiful.
Real quick, we got a relevancy webinar that's just up on the blog. If people are interested in looking at what our view of relevancy is and theme is, at nfgseo.com. No lead cap or anything. It's just sitting there for you. If you want to figure out who me and Brad are and how we act when we're together.
How we roll. We act. It's very debaucherous.
Give me the link in Skype and I'll post it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. It's NFG SEO. No fucks given. SEO.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Awesome. Yeah, drop that. We'll drop that on the event page. So
cool.
It's awesome. Thanks, guys, for being here. We appreciate you all coming on as guests.
No problem. Anytime.
No, absolutely. Appreciate it.
Cool.
You guys have a good webinar.
All right, man. Yeah, 141 episodes now.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. Long time, almost 3 years. So,
yeah.
All right, fellas. We'll see you all later. And remember, guys, Syndication Academy webinar starts momentarily. So we'll see you over there. Thanks, guys.
Later, everyone.
Bye.
Later.